I'm going to give a little quick tutorial on how to set up your spreadsheets so that you can capture your inferred matches. And we've been talking, and there's a couple other videos on YouTube about inferred matching and what does that mean. And just in brief, if I use my match list from one of the testing companies, and then I also use the match list of my brother and my sister, I can infer if my brother and my sister are full siblings, I can infer that their matches are my matches. And so I can expand the number of matches that I have. We've already talked about one way to do that with DNA clustering at MyHeritage using the clustering tool. But most of the people in the group have Ancestry accounts instead of MyHeritage or don't use the clustering tools. So I'm going to show you how to build a spreadsheet of your matches from Ancestry and then how to layer in your siblings. So we'll start with a spreadsheet, and I've done a little pre-work here just to save us a little bit of time, but I have added a row for category, and this is category of the match. So it would start with parent-child in Ancestry, and of course you can use this for 23andMe, Family Tree DNA, and so on. There's a lot of different ways you can use this. But with Ancestry, because there's no match downloading, you have to build it yourself. So the next possible connection would be, or category would be, close family. Then you have the first cousin, second cousin, and so on. And we're only going to go to third cousins. You'll have plenty of work to do in first, seconds, and thirds. If you don't happen to have any first, second, thirds, you'll have to move to fourths. But if you have at least some first, seconds, and thirds, let's work on those. So you'll see here username, and then you'll see the match to your name, and then the shared match to your sibling. And if you have more than one sibling, you can add another column here. So what I would do to add another column is I would come up here where it says D, and I would right click, insert, and then it adds another column for me. So I could have here shared match to sibling 1. And you see how some of the text is behind, so you can't read it all. In order to fix that, you go up here to wrap text, and then it'll wrap it in this box instead of extending it. So we can make this shared matches to sibling 1, shared matches to sibling 2, and then you could have whether or not they have a tree. You could put the name of the tree if you want. Whether it's a paternal or maternal match, if you happen to know, or if you've tested your parents, Ancestry will tell you their best guess on that. I also sometimes add a notes column because there might be some things that I want to add in about what I know about them. And oftentimes my notes column contains notes about two matches or 3 or 4 in the list who are related to one another. So sometimes that's really helpful too. Now you might be wondering why I started here in row 3. No particular reason. Eventually I'll probably eliminate these, but sometimes when I start a spreadsheet, I don't start all the way at the top. I don't know why that is, but it's just a habit. So if you want to delete these 2, you can go up here and choose these 2 rows, right click, delete, and then they're gone. So the other thing I like to do with a spreadsheet is if I'm going to scroll up and down a lot, I like to freeze the top row. So from here, under, I believe it's View, Tab, Freeze Panes, freeze top row. That way, no matter how much you scroll, those categories are going to still remain there. The other thing I like to do is I like to put something between these categories, because once we get lots of cousins filled in, you might switch to a new category and might not even realize it. So I'll show you that in a minute. So let's say that we have a parent-child relationship. So for me, my mom's name's April. And this is bold. I don't want it to be bold. So for some reason I have it bold. So I'll go back here to highlight the row over here and unbold it. So just click till it unbolds. I think the rest of them should be fine. Also, if you like for your chart to have these grid lines, you can do anything to the full chart just by clicking on this little triangle up here in the upper left corner. And then anything you do, choosing fonts, going up here and adding borders to everything, all of that stuff will happen to the entire sheet. So that's just one trick you can do it up there. Super easy to do that. Okay, so if I want my username match to be April, then I'm going to go to my match list. So let me pull up. I have to be kind of careful here that I pull up my match list in a way that doesn't give away too much information, but this is my match to my mom. And what I'm going to copy into my chart is right here. You and April, predicted relationship, shared centimorgans, and how many segments. That's what I'm going to copy and paste back into my spreadsheet right here. Now I'm going to show you how to do it wrong first. If you click on the box and you paste it, do you see how it shows up like this as some weird thing? So let me go back here and show you. It actually pasted the last thing that I had saved. So I'm going to go back to this and I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to Control C. That's the way I copy, Control plus capital C, or just the letter C. And then I'm going to go to my spreadsheet and I'm going to double click on it to open the box and Control V. So Control V as in Victor. So let me go through that again. If you're going to add the information here, then what you want to do is capture you and the match's name, the predicted relationship. And sometimes the reason why we're picking that up again, even though it matches over here, is that sometimes Ancestry will place someone in a first cousin category, but maybe it'll say predicted relationship first to second. So it kind of gives you a little bit more depth to that. And then the shared centimorgans you're going to need for when you're doing all your comparisons, building your trees, looking at relationships. So those are the 3 lines that we're going to copy. Remember, if you want to insert something into the cell, you don't just highlight it, you want to double click it to get the cursor in there to paste that information in. Otherwise, it's going to paste on different rows and you'll have to do the big giant undo up here in the corner. So I'm going to eliminate that so we can go back. So let's say you have one parent test and maybe you don't have any close or parent or child, anything beyond that. You don't have any close family matches. You can eliminate that if you want. And let's say you have 3 first cousins. So I need more rows here. So I'm going to add rows by, there's a couple of different ways to do it, but probably the easiest is to highlight the row and insert. But that's always going to insert above. So just keep that in mind. So then you can do it again. Highlight that row and insert. So I have room now here for 3 first cousins. So I can put their names in here as Bob, Susan. I'm going to use their ancestry names, but I'm just making things up right now. And Laura. So I'm going to use 3 first cousins, whatever their Ancestry username is. Remember, that's important because that's how you're going to invite people to your tree if they ever correspond with you. That's how you're going to track some of those first and last names or user numbers or common names. And sometimes you're going to see something that is managed by. So let's say Laura's kit is managed by Bob. You want to add that in there as context. Now, there's a couple ways that you can deal with this overage. You can just move the column if you want so you can see it. That's one way to deal with it, but sometimes they're really long. So again, you could go back to wrap the text up here, and that'll put it in one box so it wraps and you can read it. So if you've got Laura's test managed by Bob and you have Bob, those two are likely, and it's usually more information than just Bob, but those two people are likely related in some way that might be useful to you. They might be a parent-child, sets of siblings, niece, nephew, aunt, uncle. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to the managed by and putting that here so that you can track that. Sometimes I'll write notes to myself. I'll go out here to the far edge and I'll say, you know what? Bob and Susan, I'm sorry, Bob and Laura. Check Bob and Laura. So I might put that in 2 different places. Again, I might wrap the text and I might put that in 2 different places because I think those two are related to one another, and that'll help me sort who's who. You can also do the wrap text on your column. So right here, you can choose wrap text for the whole column. Or again, you could go back to this little corner and you can do wrap text for the entire spreadsheet. So you don't have to keep messing with it. Just a couple of little tips there. So let's say that I have all my first cousins in here. I don't have any close family. So I'm going to leave that category for now, only because there might be someone else who comes in as a match to me who's close family. And so I want to have that category. But let's say I have second cousins and I have a whole bunch of them. So I'm just going to eliminate the third cousin for a while. And I'm going to place third cousin like all the way down here somewhere. So let's say that I have a whole bunch of third cousins. Sorry, second cousins. I probably have a whole bunch of thirds too, but let me show you what it looks like if you fill this in. You can do this with just one click. So second cousins, you can highlight that first box and drag down and keep highlighting until you get to wherever it was that I wrote third cousins. I have no idea where. I should have put it closer. All right, let me do it again so I can put it closer. All right, second cousin. Let me put third cousin right here. So from here down, I want to fill with second cousin. I can go up here to fill in the right corner, and I can fill down, and then all the boxes populate with what I want. So that's another trick to kind of save you a little bit of time. That's probably one of the few automated things that you can do here. The next thing that I would do is I would separate these categories because like I mentioned before, the first, second, third cousin, pretty soon these are going to merge together. So what I do is I insert a row and make it a blank row, but give it like a color or something. So I would go here to number 7, right above second cousin, insert a row. And then I would give that row some kind of shade or gray or, some visual so it stands out. Now, there is something to be said for not doing that if you're going to sort your spreadsheet. So for other tasks with Excel, you don't want to have a bunch of extra rows and merge cells if you're going to sort. But we're not really going to sort this. We're going to keep building this. So I'm going to go ahead and insert those defining lines between the groups, and I'm going to do it for each one of the groups. So you see how I'm doing that? I'm choosing it and inserting right above. And the default is to insert right above if it's a row, or to insert to the left if it's a column. So now we have the beginning of our spreadsheet. We're going to fill all these in with names. So this is all kinds of different cousins, and we're going to fill those in with names from our spreadsheet. We're going to copy and paste how those matches are related to us. And once we get through our first, second, third cousin list, I would stop at fourth cousin. I wouldn't do anything else besides first, second, thirds to start. Your fourth cousin list is going to be pretty big for most people. And it's also one of the tougher ones to figure out because, again, it's one more generation back. So if you stick with first, second, thirds, you'll be golden. So the next thing we want to do after this is we want to do shared matching. So what I want to do with my siblings, there should be a sibling category in here. So let's add that in. So before close family and after parent-child, we're going to add in siblings here. So I'm going to add in 2 more rows, maybe a few more, maybe 3 more, because I have 2 siblings. So I'm going to shade this one so that there's a dividing here. So sibling. And I can't remember if Ancestry has full or half. I think it has, it changes every once in a while. I think it has full sibling now, but let me go back and check that real quick. Yeah, full sibling is the list. So if it has full sibling, or if you happen to have half siblings, you can add that in here. So I'm going to put in here my brother and my sister by username. I'm going to put their full matches to me. And once I get past these first few categories, starting with first cousin, I mean, I'm assuming that my full cousins all match my aunts and uncles or anybody else who would show up in close family. They will. Unless there's misattributed parentage, they're going to all match there. So first cousins, they should all match as well, but we're going to go ahead and check shared match to sibling 1. So my sibling 1 matches all 3 of these. Again, we can use that fill down. Shared match to my second sibling. So I can call this one brother, I can call this one sister, or however you want to do that. So they match. And again, I can fill this all the way down once I've confirmed that they match. And so you're going to do this process for your siblings. Then what happens is eventually, usually somewhere in the third cousin range or fourth, you're going to have a match that you do not have, but your sibling does have, one or the other or both. We saw this with MyHeritage's clustering tool, where by the time we got to third cousins, I had a match list. My sister had a few more and a few less than me, mostly the same. My brother, same thing. And then my brother and sister had matches that I didn't have. So what we're going to do is we're going to add those in. So let's say we're in the third cousin category, and we're going to fill this all the way down so I can show you what it looks like. And let's say we have usernames. Let's do HIJKL. Isn't this fun? Doing the alphabet. NOPQ. So you've worked on all of these and you've put in all their names and all their info. R and S. So let's say we have those. And this is going to be our row for the end of our third cousins. So these are all matches to me. And I've filled in all the information here. But let's say that I check and some of these match my siblings. So there's some that match and there's some that don't. And some more that match. And then maybe one that doesn't. And so we're going to do this process, checking these one at a time. So it does take some time, but it's not difficult work. It's just organized work. So now we have shared matches, and there are a couple of them that my brother doesn't have. And then we do the same thing with my sister. So let's say that she doesn't have this one, but she has all the rest on her match list. So we filled in who matches brother and sister. And then what we have is we have some matches that my brother has that I don't. So we're going to need to insert a line here, and we're going to need to insert that like this. We're going to do insert right here. It's another third cousin match. And let's say it's match named Paul. And it doesn't match me, but it does match my sibling. Then we're going to add in the information about that match. So there are a couple ways you can do that. You can either say no here and add another column, or when you paste in here, what you'll see, let's go way back up here. You see how it says you and April are a match? If you paste your brother's match to someone, it's going to say brother and someone are a match, and you can paste that in here. So that can be up to you how you want to capture that. But you want to make sure you've got them in approximately the same categories. So I'm not going to duplicate the matches that we all have. I'm not going to show each one of these matches 3 times. So cousin N isn't going to show up in 3 lists, but a new cousin that matches one or the other or both of my siblings is going to show up kind of at the bottom after my list. So Paul doesn't match me, but he matches my brother. Let's say that he doesn't match my sister, but then we find someone who's a match, and he's a third cousin, and his name is Rick. And he's not a match to me, but he is a match to both my brother and my sister. So you see how I'm recording who's a match to me, who's a match to the 3 of us, who's the match to the 2 of them. So I'm able to cluster or group people together. So when I'm investigating my matches, I want to make sure that I'm investigating not only mine, but the shared matches I have with my siblings.